The benefit I got from that, I'm like, if I think Matt is delusional, maybe I'm a little delusional too.
So we got our film in front of live audiences, screening at over a dozen film festivals. It was as exciting as it was terrifying. And that's when we all started to talk about making changes.
The discussion ultimately became about how can we make this the best version so we can put it forward.
We felt that we had missed two critical pieces. We never introduced Josh and Ryan's background, which is such a huge part of their story.
We dove right into the six figures to minimalism. It's very polarizing to someone who's like, well, I wish I could make six figures, and like they don't realize that no, that was the first struggle, was coming from nothing to something, but then realizing that that something wasn't what they actually wanted.
I knew we had to get this in the film. The second storyline that we missed was we didn't dig deep enough into our consumer culture. We needed more experts to help us understand how we got here.
It just adds such a legitimacy to the whole message.
We started with a trip to St. Paul, Minnesota. We wanted to interview Patrick Rohn to get his perspective.
I'm a writer and a technology consultant.
We also used that time to conduct our final interviews with Josh and Ryan.
I was born in 1981 in Knoxville, Tennessee.
I had never asked them on camera about their past, so this was my only shot to include it in the film.
I remember being poor growing up, consistently poor, and always growing up in fixer-uppers.
Things just spiraled. It was constant, this constant chaos. I felt like I didn't have control of anything.
After that, I took a trip up to Boston with my filmmaker friend Conrad. We conducted 3 interviews in one day with Christine Coe, Gail Sticchetti, and Juliet Shore.
I'm Juliet Shore. I work on issues of work and consumption.
It turned out better than I could have hoped.
The American dream has a long history. It started out as a concept that was really more about opportunity. There's no question that what it means to have made it or to have achieved the American dream in the United States has increased tremendously in material terms.
By now, this project is huge. We've got over 20 interviews, some of them over 3 hours long. Thanks, Patrick Rohn. If I could give one piece of advice to creatives starting out on a project of this scope, it's to stay organized. If you fail to do this, you'll get buried with information, declutter your digital world, and your film will be a lot easier to make. Drew and Nate finished up the score at this point and sent me all the stems for the music. One stem represents one instrument in one song. I had a lot to work with.
But like when we hand over those stems, you almost have to just kind of put your arms up in the air and be like, we'll see. You know what I mean? Like how well you fit it in. I was like, at least for me, I was just like, this is flawless.
Right.
Dude, end of the line at the end was like tear jerking, man. I was like feeling it. I'm like, I've heard this song 100 times.
I really appreciate that. And I think you're right. There's like a lot of trust that you have to put in each other. I decided to start sending my co-producers small excerpts of the changes I was making. Instead of sending them an entirely new version, the mistake I made last time, I could win them over slowly with each scene. In the beginning, it worked.
With every chapter, every time you would send us like a chunk, I would be like, yes, where does this go?
They wouldn't be able to make sense of the changes without seeing them in context. And then I sent you guys the first, the main recut of the new version that we have now. And this is where we run into trouble. Jeff, Marla, and Dave all love the new direction, but Josh and Ryan just aren't moved by it.
I remember you and I hanging out in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yeah. I actually found something from that weekend that Ryan had just mentioned. Just before I interviewed him, we continued the conversation from the night before.
The first 10 minutes, dude, I'm like, this is already a way better film.
Oh, really?
Yes. First 10 to 15 minutes, I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be such an amazing film. I know you can carry that emotion throughout the rest of it.
Yeah.
But that's just it's one thing I didn't say last night I thought I should have said.
It was a hard conversation because I certainly felt very strongly one way, And you obviously felt strongly another way, but I think at the end of the day, like, we were able to like dig a little bit deeper, and I think that's because like we're just mature adults, man, and like we're both in it for the same reason.
What I learned here is that it was our differences that showed us what was really important. You had to back up each of your thoughts, each of your beliefs with a position.
Here's what's wrong with it, and here's why. It's not like, well, that just sucks. Sorry.
I have to admit, I acted like a madman at this point in the process. I start working 12-hour days for over 3 months. We had a theatrical deadline coming up, and in addition to the multiple trailers, several teasers, we hadn't even finished the film. We went back and forth a lot, each of us making compromises. There were some major concerns that we wouldn't finish this movie in time, and there was a lot on the line. Not only was it important for us to get this message out there, we were starting to spend a lot of money. By the end of post-production and distribution, we'd spend over $80,000. That includes everything from production to editing hard drives to film festival fees and travel to promote the film. And the editing continued. We put everything we had into the smallest of details.
Oh, I remember that Colin Bevan refers to Juliet. Like, can we sort of have him lead into her?
I was talking to the author and sociologist Julie Shore, and I said, the problem with our society is that we're too materialist. And she said, actually, if you think about it, in some ways, we're not material enough.
We are too materialistic in the everyday sense of the word, and we are not at all materialistic enough in the true sense of the word.
The film is made up of thousands of those moments that just fit and work perfectly. I think you can't underestimate how important just making one simple change like that can be. So I'm feverishly working on this thing. I'm sacrificing money, sleep, my sanity. I needed to finish this movie. I needed to get the full support of my team. It was driving me nuts. After an endless number of versions, calls, emails, discussions, and debates, I sent the team what I hoped would be the final version. Up until this point, we still didn't all agree. After sending it out, I got an email from Josh. I didn't want to put out a film that only I had loved or only a portion of our team had loved. I needed something that we were all in together. And I swear to God, this happened days before our deadline.
The final cut, I am so much happier than that first cut.
It's not about perfection, but we all went to this saying, what's the best we can do?
I sent this off to my friends to get the final polish it needed. Peter Duff did the sound mix. Chris Newhard did the color grade. And we're finally ready to release it, but we had no idea how it would be received. Next up, we promote our indie movie. We have a short theatrical run, and we underestimate the power of Netflix.
I didn't realize how many people actually watch Netflix.
Apparently Netflix is popular.
To see the next episode and to watch more videos on simple living, go to my website, mattdiavella.com.